Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Clark, for putting up the picture of the shad
The
flies.
shad flies. Are we on the stream? Hi, everyone. Welcome to eLearnChat. This is our pre-show show. It's only going to last a very short time, so we're just checking to make sure everything's going okay, and then we will start the show recording. And the live stream will stay up, and you can come watch that also. You just missed a great conversation on shad flies on North Bay in Canada, among other things, because our guest today, Mark Sheppard, he is from North Bay. And I was saying that's one of the more out-of-the-way places I've ever been, and I loved it. It was absolutely beautiful up there. And the people are nice. I mean, you know what? Canadians are nice on the whole. And I don't think I've ever can say I've met a really rotten Canadian. They're all nice. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it.
We just don't show the nasty side to the tourists.
That's it.
We're nasty to each other, but not to the visitors.
Now, I'll tell you, when I was in Canada, my very first time, we went from Victoria to Vancouver. And in Vancouver, it was late already. It was about 9 o'clock at night. It was the last sea bus that went from North Vancouver across the bay, if you will, to South Vancouver or regular Vancouver, the main part of Vancouver. And we were talking to the ticket lady before that for about a half hour, just chatting. And she goes, "Where you from?" "Los Angeles," blah, blah, blah. And so we get on the sea bus, and she runs in and goes, "The captain would like you to ride with him." And I, huh? What? And he took us up to the con tower, and there we are with the captain and the first mate. And here's my wife's going, "Why are we here? It's uncomfortable. This is not nice." And I go, "Shut up. This is beautiful." So and the captain had lived in LA for a while, so he just wanted to have us chat. And he said, "You know, your first time here, I thought I'd show you from a better perspective." I mean, where else would you get? Where would you get something like not in the U.S.? That was beautiful, and everybody. That whole trip was like the nicest person we've ever met. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. But that 10-minute bus ride was great. It's not a bus. It's actually a sea bus. It's like a flat barge platform that looks like a big white subway. It's really cool.
I'm a big fan of the sea bus.
It's beautiful.
I had an aunt who lived in North Van for years, and taking the sea bus was always a fun trip.
It's fun. I don't know why, but it's just a lot of fun. And but we got to go with the captain in the con tower. Beautiful view. I wish I had a camera with me that day. We didn't have cell phones in those days either. So that was a little. That was 31 years ago, 32 years ago. It was a long time ago, but it was fun. It was actually just a blast.
Excellent.
Anyway, do you want to start the show recording? Okay, so we're going to start the show recording, and we will introduce you shortly, and you'll be right back, Mark. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech. Wrong show. Let's start that again. eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge. My brain's not there today. I think I didn't sleep enough. Hi, Linda. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Rick?
This is fun. This is called live broadcasting, and we sometimes make mistakes. And it's been a long day, and we're just kind of struggling along sometimes. But Linda is a great voiceover talent. If you ever need voiceover for your e-learning courses, marketing, or anything else, if you want cartoon characters, she did cartoons for 17 years. Linda's awesome. She's a great person to work with and just a lovely person to know. And Linda, that is pretty in Spanish. And Joy, an absolute pleasure to work with. So, Linda Joy, how are you today?
I am doing great. I don't know how I can live up to that nice introduction. Thank you, Rick.
Oh, you do it well. Well, let's do our intro and then let's get going. We are back, and oh, there he is. He just showed up. Just by the miracle of movie making, he's in our center spot. Mark Sheppard, he's an e-learning consultant. Have you been a developer? I know you've done a ton in e-learning.
I've done developing as well.
Yep. And he's here joining us. He's originally from North Bay, Canada. We were talking about that in the intro, which is not a place a lot of Americans for sure have been, but it's gorgeous. And now he lives outside of Toronto in the general area there. And welcome on the show. We're glad to see you again.
Thanks very much for having me. That was a heck of an introduction for Linda. I think actually I want to interview her now.
Linda's great. You have she was the voice of Little Miss Piggy for, I don't know, 15 years, 14 years.
Yeah, well, I recorded them, and the German voice of
The German
baby
voice.
Miss Piggy, and so I recorded her over the course of 12 years.
12.
And I still, then I commuted from the United States to Germany to record her towards the end when I moved over here.
She's fluent in German and English, and she's actually born of American parents, but they actually force-fed her British. So you'd never know that. Have some British for breakfast.
Okay, now back to Mark.
Let's go back to Mark.
And I would like to make sure everybody knows that Mark will be at the Learning Solutions Conference in March.
You're going to be a
Very much
docent
looking
there. You're
forward
going
to
to be one of the docents over there.
Yes.
That's correct. It's an experience I'm really looking forward to. I had a couple of colleagues who have done the docent routine for DevLearn and other events that the Guild has run. Dave Kelly reached out to me earlier this year and asked me if I'd take it on, so I'm actually quite excited about it.
That's great. That's
And
great.
can you just re-explain for those who don't know what a docent, what the function is? Because it's very special. It's not at they don't have docents at every conference.
It's very true, and it's one of the niche things that the Guild has done really, really well. It's the idea of the docent really comes from the world of museums and exhibits and galleries. And these are people who know what the facility is, they know what the event is, they know what a lot of in the case of the conferences, they know what the tracks are, and they know what people are talking about. And they help the conference participants to be able to put together a good experience for them and point them in the direction of their experts. So it's very different than being just like a tour guide and saying, hey, come follow me, and everybody's going to go to this one spot. The docents are available pretty much on demand for all the participants and even for other people on the fly. We'll also arrange some sit-down lunch times with experts, so very similar to this format. They'll have somebody sit down with the docent participants over lunch, ask some questions, pick their brains, get some ideas about what other people are doing. So new and veteran conference goers alike are making use of it, so I'm thrilled to be part of it this time around.
Well, it's a great opportunity to really meet people who know what they're doing and actually pick the brains, share the information. It's the kind of thing that when I was younger, if I could find somebody that was like a sponge, just try to absorb as much as you can, because you don't have that opportunity all the time. And
That's very true.
it's smart what they're doing. So I think that'll be great. And you'll have a blast doing it too, because you'll get to share a lot and just really even meet all the people who are there. A lot of the people at Learning Solutions tend to be newer at it. You get some advanced, but you get a lot of people kind of touching the waters or haven't been in for many years. So they usually have a lot of questions. How do we do this? What about that? Any pitfalls? And so it's a lot of fun. So as a docent, you'll have a good time. And of course, as you're touring people, you could say things like, and behind that chair, there lies a dead person. No, but we won't talk about that.
Yes, and here you see the instructional designer in their natural habitat as I walk them by the bar.
Their natural habitat. Oh, that's wonderful. But I think it's also it's double great, because going to a conference can be so overwhelming. There is so much to learn, and you're just then on overload. And I'm sure that a docent can help kind of sort through the things, weave through, where am I now with all of this information?
That's very true, and in a lot of respects, it's not much different than what we tend to do for people in the workplace. We try to help them determine, is there a problem they're trying to solve? Is there something that they're trying to accomplish? And here's the resources that are available for you, and more importantly, here's the SME you can go listen to for the next 40 minutes about this particular topic, and get a little bit of Q&A with them. So it's really nice to see. Your point, Rick, about it being a conference for say newer attendees is absolutely right on. It's a very different field than DevLearn, but I think that's one of the things that's really nice about it, because you've got a lot of people in that I'm new space, or this is the first time I've kind of come out to talk to other people in the industry mindset, and so I'm quite stoked about it. I've presented there before, but it'll actually be nice to just be the docent, help people around, and take in a very different conference experience this year.
That's true. That's true.
Nice.
It should be fun.
What are the dates?
You would ask me that. I believe it's it's the middle of. It's the middle of March. I think it's the 16th to the 18th, but
Something like that. And I was totally off.
I double check that.
I thought it was 13th to 15th, but I'm probably totally off. Somewhere around that period.
You
Okay.
you may be correct. I know it's I believe it's the third week in
Third
March.
week. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fun show. And Orlando's a cute place.
It is.
I like Orlando. I think, and if you get outside of right where the conference is, you can go to some great restaurants. And Disney's right there, just across the street. You can go to downtown
That's right.
Disney. However, that is a madhouse that no human should have to tolerate for more than 5 minutes. It's horrible. We went one time, and it took us almost 4 hours to get a meal. And by the time we ate, it was 10 o'clock at
no.
night from 7. It was just horrible. It was just, they're so full. And because this is right around spring break, there's a lot of kids.
It can be very busy, but I
It's
figure it's
busy.
still better than trying to get people into an event at the Magic Kingdom during.
That would even
March.
be worse. Yeah, that would be worse.
It would be. It would be.
Mark, you wrote a great piece on for people who are not able to attend conferences and are really kind of sad because maybe there's clashes time-wise, different reasons that they can't attend. I really enjoyed it. Could you tell us a bit about that piece that you wrote
Oh,
about
thanks.
the back channels?
That was one that I actually wrote for Shannon Tipton, who I know you had spoken to recently, and. When these events are on and for whatever reason people can't go, and I kind of tapped into my own experience being shortchanged on a couple of conference funding requests in the past, it's important for you to actually not get too down about the fact that you can't be there, because we have such a sharing economy in our industry. People are very willing to put forth, their expertise, their interpretations of what's going on. And so it's a way to encourage people to say, okay, fine, you can't be there in person, but you have access to a number of social media channels and other communication venues that are going to give you part of that experience. Whether it's somebody openly sharing their slide deck or presentation with some of their notes, or whether it's people's interpretations of a keynote. There's a number of folks who also actively sketchnote some of the keynotes as well. So folks like Kevin Thorne come to mind for their absolutely outstanding sketch notes. Clark Quinn is very good with his keynote mind maps. So these are ways for people to actually get some of that experience without being there.
And what social media avenues are usually used for that?
Primarily, people were using Twitter, but I've really seen an evolution over the last little while where people are taking advantage of platforms like Slack and setting up ad hoc communities to bring people together, and also to really bridge the conference attendees and the non-conference attendees, which is kind of a new thing, and having it in that closed Slack environment, or I should say that encapsulated Slack environment, you get a channel that's pretty free of distractions. And for example, you don't have to filter through your Twitter feed to find the stuff that you're really looking for. With Slack, you then have the ability to actually be talking to people directly. I also find that the media access and the media support in tools like Slack is much better for people. We also see folks doing things like Facebook Live. People were doing Periscope and Blab, although those, Blab's really gone off the radar now. But I see Twitter still being a mainstay, and Slack really coming up hard on the outside.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wonder about Twitter, though, because Twitter right now is trying to get sold and nobody's buying them.
Oh.
They haven't made money at all. So.
Which, given the number of ads I see heading into my stream these days, I find that hard to believe.
It must not be expensive, because they said they just can't maintain it at the rate they're going. I guess I forgot how many millions upon millions of people. I don't know if they're in the billion range, but it's a lot of people.
It's
I don't
astounding.
know. One day we should have a conversation on Twitter. I think Twitter and some of the other social media, especially Twitter, is probably saturated at this point. Because when the premise is interesting until you have a lot of followers. Then you don't follow anybody because you can't.
Yeah.
I was doing great until I had about 1,000. After that, it became really, really hard. At 3,000 or 3,500, whatever I have, I don't know who's anybody anymore. It just goes so fast. It's like, so I have certain friends I always follow, but I don't see anybody else. And
you're not alone in that one, Rick.
It's a hard one.
It is hard, and folks like Harold Jarkey talk about our filter failure issues and how we're not able to process a lot of information.
Yeah.
For me, the starting point was just the acceptance that I'm not going to be able to keep up with everything.
Yep.
I have people on my Twitter feed who are from Australia, and with the time zone differences, I'm not going to get a chance to interact with them a lot.
Right.
But some of their stuff gets picked up. Some of it gets retweeted. Sometimes they're putting it into other channels or other venues, and I can still see it. So I view Twitter now like a lottery of sorts. And I know that I've got the mainstays that I'm going to see in my feed on a regular basis, and if I want to go granular, I can start taking a look at lists, although I admit I don't use them very often.
Right.
But I also find that some of the retweeted and the quoted and replied commentary, there's still things to explore in there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to have it, but it can be a crapshoot. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I like the way you call it a lottery. You have good days and bad. You win sometimes, and
Yes,
sometimes nothing.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
a good analogy because it's just not consistent. And I think people, especially if they've been on a long time, you've probably been on a long time. I've been on, I think, like 8-9 years, ever since they started, pretty much. And I now don't know who anybody is anymore. I have all these followers I wish I could get closer to, but I don't even see them. And then when you try to filter through your own people, the people you subscribe to, it's hard. They don't make it easy. So if you want to find somebody, it's hard. You can do searches, but they're not the best. And so I thought it was a great platform originally. Right now, I'm not so sure. It's good, and you can get stuff out there. But when we look at like our Hootsuite records of how we're doing with shows, and it's really low on Twitter, very low, where it used to be really high. Facebook is still pretty good. What we see big right now is LinkedIn. That's grown quite a bit. It's a little more serious, I guess, and there's a lot less noise on LinkedIn. I do want to try Slack. I haven't tried that yet. I was at a show recently that used it, the TLDC show, and unfortunately I didn't have a chance to really get on. We were too busy interviewing people, and by the time we were done, we're gone. But I want to get that in because that may be a good way to just keep in touch with people, and especially like you said, you can create networks on Slack that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, Slack is. I've had the opportunity to work with Slack for a while now, and I have a couple of colleagues that I've worked with on Slack projects. So, for example, working through the learner community that we created for Training Magazine's online learning conference in September, we actually had a large number of people coming through that group and using that as their primary networking mechanism.
Okay.
And it was astounding to see how people picked up on it, and more importantly, how quickly they were able to pick up on it. And it's also something that you can use as a post-conference communications venue. It becomes a little more asynchronous because not everybody's in at the same time, or there aren't events happening at the same time. But from my point of view, it's really the sleeper, the dark horse learning and development tool, and it's one of those disruptive innovations that we see because it was never built as an L&D platform, but the power that it has to actually operate in the L&D space, to me, is really unparalleled. So it's been the subject of a lot of discussion. It's been the subject of a lot of conversation. More and more people now, I think, are starting to talk about it in the L&D space, which for me is really nice to see. Its power is just incredible. And Rick, I think you'd find, as a way to extend this particular community, Slack would be a good venue, and its learning curve is so shallow.
That's good. Yeah. The only thing I thought that they did a bad job on was the name, because now when people say, "What do you do?" Well, I'm a slacker.
True.
So,
But that is a badge I will happily wear with pride.
Well, I think anywhere where people can communicate, that are a group of people, like in the e-learning community, that is so specified, that is such a niche, that it's you need that. You need to be able to create groups.
That's true. That's
to
true.
communicate in.
But you also need what people talk about in that social constructivist type of environment, where people are learning from each other. They're learning through the interactions that they have with people, which Jane Bozarth has this great phrase that she uses with people. When one caveman showed another caveman how to start a fire, that's social learning. And as it went on, it becomes more constructivist. And we need to see more of that in L&D because this operates in the 70% space of 70, 20, 10. And you get people talking about their own experiences, openly sharing, actively sharing. And it's not about creating content. It's about having a learning experience, and it's about sharing expertise and giving people a space to reflect. So Slack, as I said, it's perfectly positioned for that.
Yes.
So
Mark, I saw a wonderful drawing of yours once you did a little video, and it was in the background there was this big poster that you'd very artsy, it was a onboarding funnel. So I'm interested, as you approach a project, and it's probably different every time because it depends on what your position is then within the project. Do you use pen and paper a lot? Is that something that you just connect with?
It is in spite of my well-honed ed tech credentials, I admit there's times when I'm a pen and paper guy, and in the drawings that you were referring to, I was very fortunate. I actually had my own office space, and I was pretty much given the freedom to do whatever I needed to do to help the organization get this onboarding program actually revived and reestablished and more automated. So I am a big fan of large markers, the easel size. Post-its that I can throw up on walls and start building. And I also find when I'm working with folks collaboratively, it's nice because that larger format allows us to do a step back and we can take a look at a number of different pieces. That's actually a little bit harder to do, say, if you're just working on a notebook or you're just passing 8.5 by 11 sheets back and forth.
Yes.
So that I find ideal when I'm working collaboratively. I have found a couple of things that are really nice for me on the pen and paper side that actually have technology integrations. There's a tool called Rocketbook that I am absolutely in love with that will let you do all of your sketching, your drawing, your note taking, and the app on your smartphone or your tablet will actually capture it. The QR code that's there and a couple of smart tags will actually send it to the cloud service of your choice. And then when you've filled the notebook, you stick it in the microwave to wipe out all the ink.
No.
Yes.
That's interesting.
That is just amazing.
So this project was a Kickstarter, and they wanted an initial ask of a few $100,000 so they could get this started. They got over 1.3 million because people looked at this and said, this is the sweet spot. So it uses a particular ink from friction pens, which you can get at any office supply store. They're very common. But they perfected the paper, the coating, and all of the imaging technology and the image processing technology to be able to do it. And what's nice is that it doesn't skew the image like it would if you were, say, just taking a picture of a regular sheet of paper. It actually says,
Yes.
oh, I know where the edges are, and so I'm going to take out the keystone for this, so you actually have the nice, correct shape when you do your drawings. It'll capture everything in color, and it's fantastic.
That's pretty cool. And that's called Rocketbook.
Rocketbook.
Sorry, Rick.
No, that was it.
It brings the two worlds together. It brings the tactile pen and paper, like you say, the huge collaborative aspect of just drawing on the wall, basically, and then transmits it. That is just amazing. What's the app name again?
So the app is called Rocketbook. So that's the name for the app and the name for the actual book itself. So they have it tied and available to Dropbox, to Google Drive, to OneNote, and now to Slack, which I was very happy about. That's available for both Android and iOS. And they're working on integrating other services. Evernote, of course, is huge for that one. But it's nice to know that they've got a number of other services that you can tag into. You can even just have it email a copy of this sketch or this drawing to yourself.
That's great. Now, Mark, you've got a graphic or artistic background too, don't you?
I do, and it's nice after more than 25 years to actually be able to put it to good use.
How did you wind up getting into training and e-learning?
I was an Army reservist up here, and one of the fundamental leadership criteria for getting past the rank of corporal is that you have to be an instructor, and you're trained as an instructor.
Okay.
And so I was very fortunate early on in my career that I got onto my leadership course and learned how to instruct. So, from the tender age of 20 onwards, I was teaching courses, whether it was basic training or trades courses, and I quite enjoyed doing that kind of thing on a part-time basis, similar to what folks in the States would be doing in the National Guard. And eventually that morphed into teaching corporately. But I always enjoyed the creative process and the assembly process of building lessons and coming up with ideas. And so my classroom work eventually morphed into working instructional design, starting at the lesson level, but then eventually moving on to full-blown curriculum planning.
That's great. Isn't it
Nice.
amazing? So sometimes, a lot of people think, why would anybody go to the Army or whatever? In the armed forces, you learn a lot of stuff. It's not just bang, bang. There's a lot of training that goes on, and it's good.
They're really the unsung leadership academies for most Western civilizations that people get good leadership credentials, they get good leadership experience, and the ones who are able to instruct and guide people actually have that edge, because we know that in business, good leadership criteria is our leadership competencies are the ability to teach people and to guide them and to coach them in their performance, and that's something that the military encourages on a regular basis.
And you have that in common with Kevin Thorne, who was in the military something like 20, 25 years.
Very
and
much
he
so.
is a very gifted graphic artist, and he's an e-learning developer, same kind of background. He did that in the military. And you just go, that's great. I mean, he came out with
Nice.
skill sets that he used there and that he's using outside. And that's all good, plus the leadership training and everything else. So, very good.
And a heavy tolerance for ambiguity.
That's so good. That's true. That's very true. Well, Mark, we are about at the end of our time. We'd love to have you back on again and get deeper into some of the stuff that we're only really starting to talk about now. So can we invite you back on?
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you.
Tell you what, you start working on Slack, and then you and I can have a deeper conversation on
I will.
Slack.
I'll sign up for it this weekend, or if not earlier.
Excellent.
It's one of those things I have to do. I'm on Yammer, which is different. It's a little different, but I guess Slack is, and they're both owned by Microsoft. So,
Well, Slack's not owned by Microsoft
I thought
yet.
they were.
I think Microsoft would love to own Slack.
Okay.
The rumors in the industry are that Microsoft is paring back Yammer. I don't think they got from it quite what they expected. It's one of the reasons why they had that recent beef up of Skype for business and a lot of the communication functions that are in Skype. But Slack is still its own company. As a matter of fact, they've opened a development and support office in Toronto, where they have plans to open one probably in the next 3 to 6 months.
where are they located?
They're located actually in Vancouver.
Oh, are they really? Okay.
Yeah, or the core of the organization's in Vancouver, but they're opening an office in Toronto. I think they're probably going to have about 140 people in the Toronto office.
That's pretty good. That's great. That's a good thing. I got to try it out. Have you tried it,
No.
Linda? No, not yet. That might, there may be some Slack things for voiceover talents and other things too, so you never know. That could be good.
I should look. Yes.
Because it sounds promising.
It is well worth your time to start exploring it.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Yeah, that sounds like actually a better venue in many cases than Twitter, because it's a little more focused on what you're looking at rather than just kind of general. There's a lot of noise on Twitter and social media on the whole, so you got to filter through the noise, and it's not always that much fun. But so that could be really interesting. Definitely sounds good.
I'll check it out
I
too.
have seen people use Slack almost like a value add. So people who are vendors are saying, and if you sign up with us or you do whatever with us, then we'll make you part of our Slack community. So so a lot of the the old bulletin board based discussions and things like that people will host. a lot of that's moving to Slack. We're also seeing a lot of organizations integrating their help desks with Slack. So tools like Zendesk and others, people are operating in Slack communities and running tickets through there. It's astounding to see.
Well, you gave me an idea. You basically told me to do it. So yes, sir. When you said we could actually incorporate,
Yeah, I have my little Post-it note.
yeah,
now
and we could
to
actually
do
incorporate Slack as part of the RelayCast shows and have one for each show. I mean, we've interviewed some of the best people in the industry, you included. So that would make for kind of a little mini think tank of some great people that have a lot in common. So that would be kind of fun.
Exactly.
We should do that. That is a great idea, actually. Now we're looking for volunteers to run it. Mark?
we can talk about that after the class.
That's right, afterwards. Anyway, how can people get a hold of you for to getting together for whatever reason, work, whatever? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Twitter is, in spite of our Twitter bashing in this session, Twitter is probably one of the best ways to get a hold of me, and you can find me on Twitter as @MarkLearns. You can also find me through my web portal at about.me/Mark Sheppard.
About.me/Mark Sheppard?
Yeah, we've got that in the lower third.
About.me/
Oh, that's one, isn't it?
Mark
Okay.
Sheppard. And you can also find me on my Facebook page at The Hitchhiker's Guide to Learning.
That's a good one.
Good one, yeah.
Can you imagine that just got a course?
Okay, that's a trade. I'm going to use that when you set up the Slack community.
Got a course, yep.
Well, and of course you're on LinkedIn.
Yes, I am absolutely on LinkedIn.
Mark Sheppard on that one?
Yes.
Okay. And do you usually put like Toronto, or do you put your Whitby as for, because sometimes on LinkedIn you have to kind of put a city or something so people can figure out.
The middle initial L.
Yes,
have-
yes, Mark L.
Mark L. Sheppard.
Mark L.
Okay.
Sheppard, yes, and the alphabet soup of credentials after my name.
Okay. Oh, Mark, it's been a pleasure just seeing you again and having you on the
Likewise.
show, and we look forward to having you on again. And I'll definitely get into that Slack thing. You got me going now. That sounded interesting and exciting, actually. I was
Fantastic.
starting to get burned out on social media. It's always the same, and after a while, it's the same people following the same people everywhere. So nobody ever gets to talk to anybody because nobody knows where anybody's at. They're just everywhere. It's sort of an interesting dichotomy there, or challenge. But anyway, Mark, well, good luck in everything you're doing. I hope to see you in Learning Solutions. Well, definitely, if we go out there, I'll give you a call ahead and we can have dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever, and get together. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
And
Great having you on the show, Mark.
Thank you, Linda.
And
Thanks,
for all you
Rick.
people watching, please subscribe, pay attention to the channel. We're on Vimeo. This show will be on Vimeo later. And the live show, what we're doing right now, will also be on YouTube in perpetuity or until they throw us off, whichever one comes first. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.